Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The owner of token number 30 is a young man in his 30s. It has to be said that the young talents from the major empires who can stand here today are all top-notch talented warriors in their respective empires, and they have their own pride. Duan Lingtian's opponent was no exception. Are you the guy who got a bye in the first round? The young man looked down at Duan Lingtian with an arrogant expression and asked with disdain. However, Duan Lingtian ignored him. Or rather, he was too lazy to care. After using his mental power to detect the other party's cultivation level, Duan Lingtian completely ignored the other party. A 5th-level warrior in the Void Realm poses no threat to him now. The boy is quite arrogant. Seeing that Duan Lingtian dared to ignore him, the young man's face darkened, a violent gleam in his eyes, and he said in a deep voice, "Do you know that no one has ever dared to ignore me like this?" Then we have it today. Duan Lingtian still didn't look at the young man. He straightened his sleeves and spoke slowly. "Boy, you're looking for death." The young man's face changed drastically, and the energy in his body rose up, as if it turned into flames, roaring up. Wow! Above the void, the power of heaven and earth trembled, finally converging into the phantoms of 7 ancient horned dragons. All of this undoubtedly shows the young man's cultivation. Enter the 5th level of the Void Realm. If the young man in white who was in charge of hosting today's Dynasty Martial competition had not announced the start, the young man would have been impatient to attack Duan Lingtian. Right now, in the audience seats where the Blackstone Empire's group of people were, everyone's eyes were fixed on Duan Lingtian, especially the representatives of Prince Yong and the Fufeng Empire. He stared at Duan Lingtian with scorching eyes. What they all wanted to know was Duan Lingtian's current cultivation level. It was so important to Long Yun, who had already broken through to the 7th level of the Void Realm. Duan Lingtian. Long Yun stared at Duan Lingtian and took a deep breath. He was also eager to know Duan Lingtian's current cultivation level. His goal, in addition to defeating Su Li and bringing honor to his master, was to defeat Duan Lingtian and wash away the shame of the past. If possible, he would kill Duan Lingtian after defeating him. This would prevent Duan Lingtian from causing trouble for the 3 Qinglin sects in the future. Among the 3 leaders of the Qinglin 3 sects, the one who was originally the leader of the Demon Lotus Blade sect was his adoptive father and had done him a great favor. He didn't want to put his adoptive father in danger. "Finally, I get to see you take action," Su Li muttered to himself, his face full of anticipation. In the lower-class spectator stands surrounding the prison fighting arena, an uproar erupted. It's that young man who got lucky in the first round of selection and got a bye. This young man should be the youngest among the talented young men from various empires present today, right? Yes, he is indeed the youngest. He looks to be around 25 at most. What empire is he from? Could it be that there are no young people left in that empire? The audience in the lower-class seats cannot see what is happening in the middle-class seats. It's someone from the Blackstone Empire again. In some of the middle-level audience seats, several representatives from other empires knew Duan Lingtian's background. This time, the Blackstone Empire had 2 young talents who were above the 7th level of the Void Realm. It's hard not to attract their attention. "Kid, if you know what's good for you, admit defeat now. Otherwise, once the competition begins, I will tear you in half." Duan Lingtian's opponent, the young man, had a slightly ferocious expression on his face, his eyes flashing with a bloody red luster, ready to devour anyone he chose. "Tear me in half." Duan Lingtian smiled. "That depends on whether you have the ability. You'll see." Although Duan Lingtian's composure made the young man vaguely uneasy. But this slight uneasiness disappeared when he saw Duan Lingtian's young face. He didn't think that a young man of only about 25 years old could be a match for him, a 5th-level warrior in the Void Realm. The other party is actually trying to be mysterious. He believed that as soon as the young man in white presiding over the prison fighting arena announced the start of the martial arts competition, the young man would immediately admit defeat. And he will try to tear the opponent in half at that moment. He always does what he says. The martial arts competition begins. After the 20 young talents took their positions, the young man in white spoke. Suddenly, many young talents took action and chose to strike first. Among them was Duan Lingtian's opponent. Duan Lingtian's opponent. The moment the young man in white finished speaking, he swooped down towards Duan Lingtian like a prey hawk. Above the void, to the side of the 7 ancient horned dragon phantoms, 8 more ancient horned dragon phantoms appeared, plus the phantoms of several thousand ancient giant elephants. It was obvious that Duan Lingtian's opponent was not only a 5th-level warrior in the Void Realm, but also had comprehended the 5th-level artistic conception and possessed a 5th-grade spiritual weapon. Hiss! The young man's right hand tightly grasped the sharp claws of the spiritual weapon and flew out of the air, causing a slight whistling sound in the wind, which was a bit harsh. His figure moved as fast as the wind, and in the blink of an eye he was in front of Duan Lingtian. He attacked like lightning, and the 5th-grade spiritual weapon, which contained raging Yuanli and the shadow-like, 5th-level artistic conception, flew out of the air and went straight for Duan Lingtian's forehead. Facing the full-strength attack of this 5th-level Void Realm warrior, Duan Lingtian remained as calm as ever. Seeing the other party's sharp claws coming towards him, Duan Lingtian moved. Sword drawing. Without moving, he raised his hand and shook it lightly. The purple sword light, which few people present could see clearly, flashed and disappeared, as if it turned into a poisonous red snake, biting the young man's neck fiercely. Whoosh! As the sword light disappeared, before the onlookers could react, Duan Lingtian had already put away the purple myrtle soft sword in his hand and kicked out. Boom! Before the young man's claws could get close, Duan Lingtian kicked him in the chest, sending him flying. But the opponent remained motionless at this moment, allowing Duan Lingtian to kick him away. If you look closely, you can see that it's not that he doesn't want to move. But he had already died. On his throat, a tiny sword wound appeared, and now dazzling blood was continuously gushing out. A warrior at the 5th level of the Void Realm was killed by Duan Lingtian in a single encounter. Number 32 wins. The middle-aged man who was in charge of recording the battle results was stunned for a moment before he came to his senses and announced, "So strong." In one encounter, he killed a 5th-level Void Realm warrior. Is this really a young man only around 25 years old? The group of people who had thought Duan Lingtian was bound to lose were all stunned. How come there are so many young and powerful people in the Blackstone Empire? Many representatives of the Empire could not help but frown. They had never expected that the Blackstone Empire would produce such powerful young talents one after another. In their opinion, the strength of this purple-robed youth seemed to be no weaker than the other 2 young talents of the Blackstone Empire who were above the 7th level of the Void Realm. Really? The representative of the Fufeng Empire, the old man, surnamed Liu, sighed. Although Prince Yong had been mentally prepared, he was still shocked. Duan Lingtian, is he so powerful? This guy seems to have some reservations. Su Li raised his eyebrows and thought to himself. Duan Lingtian. Long Yun's face was solemn. He hadn't seen Duan Lingtian's attack clearly just now, which made him realize that his strength seemed to be slightly inferior to Duan Lingtian's. This made him very unhappy. I don't know what my odds are. Facing the scorching gazes, Duan Lingtian completely ignored them. With a flick of his body, he transformed into a streak of purple lightning and shot out. However, this time, he did not return to where the Blackstone Empire and others were, but went straight to the upper audience seats. His actions stunned many people. That place, I don't think anyone can go up there, right? Even the young man in white who was presiding over the prison fight couldn't help but glance sideways. When he saw Duan Lingtian sitting next to the three members of the Feng family, the young man in white was surprised. He's from a small empire, and he actually knows Feng Wudao? Tianwu, how much did you earn? Duan Lingtian sat next to Feng Tianwu and asked impatiently. Feng Tianwu was startled for a moment, then realized what Duan Lingtian was talking about. She couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Brother Duan, the prison fighting arena hasn't started gambling yet. Wait until the third round of selection, and then the gambling will begin." The third round of selection will start? Duan Lingtian was stunned when he heard this, and then he realized that he was too impatient. Duan Lingtian smiled awkwardly. He then said hello to Feng Wudao and Kong Lao, then returned to the audience seats where the Blackstone Empire was and sat down next to Su Li. Duan Lingtian, do you know anyone sitting in the upper-class seats? The representative of the Fufeng Empire, the old man surnamed Lu, looked at Duan Lingtian and asked in surprise. I guess we know each other. Duan Lingtian nodded casually. Do you consider us acquaintances? The old man's mouth twitched. What kind of answer is this? After Duan Lingtian sat down, he could notice that many people were still looking at him for a long time. It left him speechless for a while. Fortunately, after a while, those eyes gradually turned away from him, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It feels very unpleasant to be treated like a monkey. At this time, the other 18 young talents also successively decided their victories. 10 people, including Duan Lingtian, became the first to advance in the second round of selection. Gao Yuhai, who competed with Duan Lingtian, was eliminated. Immediately afterwards, the second round of selection continued. Because the number of people participating in the second round of selection was only half of the number of people participating in the first round of selection, the second round of selection ended very quickly. On the Blackrock Empire's side, only Duan Lingtian, Su Li, and Long Yun advanced. As for the Fufeng Empire, there were only 2 people left, namely the 2 strongest 6th-level warriors in the Void Realm among the young talents from the Fufeng Empire. The second round of promotion selection is over. Take a quarter-hour break. After a quarter hour, the third round of promotion selection will continue. The young man in white spoke at the right moment. So far, the group of young talents who participated in the Dynasty Martial Arts competition either directly crushed their opponents or were directly crushed by their opponents. Of course, there are also some that are evenly matched. The duel between these equally matched young talents will test their respective combat experience and skills. Skills, commonly referred to as martial arts. However, the young talents present, in terms of martial arts skills, they are almost all on par, and all have mastered high-level earth-level martial arts at the perfect level. Duan Lingtian had already discovered this. For warriors in the Void Realm, earth-level martial arts are linked to the momentum they comprehend. As long as the momentum reaches the subtle realm, the high-level earth-level martial arts will be considered to have entered the perfect realm. However, warriors at the level of entering the Void Realm are the most embarrassed. Unless you comprehend the Dongshu realm as soon as possible and practice heaven-level martial arts. Otherwise, in a duel with their opponents, they would find that the opponent's attainments in martial arts are often not inferior to theirs. In the duel between the two, the most important thing is to rely on the crushing of energy and artistic conception. If the Yuanli and artistic conception are also comparable, then what is tested more is the combat experience of each party and the gap between the high-level earth-level martial arts at the same perfect realm. Those with a clear gap will definitely lose. Regarding martial arts, between high-level earth-level martial arts and heaven-level martial arts, there is another insurmountable hurdle. Through the memories of the reincarnation martial emperor, Duan Lingtian also had a certain understanding of the heaven-level martial arts. Heaven-level martial arts are different from earth-level martial arts. For earth-level martial arts, the realm is completely dependent on the level of momentum. As for heaven-level martial arts, although there is a threshold, it requires the comprehension of the Dongshu realm of intent, that is, martial artists above the intermediate realm of intent can practice it. But it is no longer confined to the level of artistic conception. It mainly guides warriors to use their own energy and artistic conception more perfectly, thereby exerting the most effective attack, defense, and speed. For example, a warrior at the first level of the Cave Void Realm duels against another warrior at the first level of the Cave Void Realm. The former's artistic conception is comparable to the latter's, but the spiritual weapon is one level lower. The latter is less powerful than two ancient horned dragons. Under such circumstances, if the former's attainments in heavenly level martial arts are far superior to the latter's, it is not impossible for him to win. By then, the mystery of the heavenly level martial arts would be enough to ignore the difference in power between these two ancient horned dragons. To put it in an analogy, the latter is slightly stronger in brute force, while the former is more skilled in technique, so it's not impossible for the former to win. Duan Lingtian's heart moved when he thought of this. Of course, even though it's a matter of brute force, the difference shouldn't be exaggerated. For example, if an adult fights a 3-year-old child, even if the adult has no skills and the 3-year-old's skills are truly superb, there's no way the 3-year-old can defeat the adult. When the power gap reaches a certain level, the stronger and the weaker will be absolutely crushed in a fight. Duan Lingtian was very clear about this. Heaven-level martial arts. Low-level heaven-level martial arts are fine. There aren't too many requirements. But if it's a high-level heaven-level martial art, then not everyone can practice it. Thinking of the 9 Tribulations sword controlling technique he obtained from the Sword Emperor's treasury last time, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but shook his head. The 9 Tribulations sword controlling technique requires the coordination of mental power to perform. Unless it's an inscription master. Otherwise, only by achieving the status of Martial Emperor can one use mental strength to perform the 9 Tribulations sword controlling technique. Compared to the 9 Tribulations sword controlling technique, the 9 Dragons Inch Flash, included in the 7th transformation of the 9 Dragons Warring Sovereign technique, left by the Reincarnation Martial Emperor, is also a high-level heavenly rank martial art, but it doesn't rely on mental power. Instead, it relies on. At this time, Duan Lingtian began to search for the memories left by the Samsara Martial Emperor regarding the 7th transformation of the 9 Dragons Warring Sovereign art. The artistic conception of the sword. Duan Lingtian never expected that the 7th transformation of 9 Dragons Warring technique, in addition to cultivating mental skills, also taught people how to comprehend the sword realm in a short period of time. So this 9 Dragons Inch Eye Flash is a set of sword skills. It's a brand new set of sword skills created by the Samsara Martial Emperor by integrating the high-level heavenly sword skills, 9 Dragons Flash, and Inch Eye Sword. Duan Lingtian suddenly understood. Sword skills. Sword realm. If I can comprehend the sword realm, and with this sword realm fragment in my hand, wouldn't my progress in the sword realm be just as rapid as my progress in the wind realm? Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian's mood became excited. The surprise came too fast. As early as when he obtained the fragment of sword state of mind, Duan Lingtian had wanted to try to comprehend the sword force and transform this sword force into this sword state of mind. In this way, the fragments of sword state of mind can be put to good use and will not be wasted. Moreover, if he comprehends the sword realm, it will have a huge impact on his future. Last time, he obtained 3 mystery fragments in the Sword Emperor's treasury. One of them is the fragment of the sword's secret. In order to put the fragment of the sword's secret to use, he must first comprehend the 9-layered high-level sword realm before he can begin to come into contact with the secret of the sword. No matter what, the 7th transformation of 9 Dragons Battle Sovereign Art can be said to be a timely help this time, pointing out the way forward for Duan Lingtian and allowing him to avoid many detours. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian. At some point, while half asleep, Duan Lingtian heard a voice calling him. He was startled at this moment, came back to his senses, and looked at Suli beside him. What's wrong? Just now, it was Suli who called him. Don't be distracted. It's time for you to go on stage. Lydia Su smiled bitterly. Duan Lingtian was startled when he heard this. Then he looked up and found that Dragon Cloud had already flown over the prison fighting arena. In addition, 18 young talents appeared one by one. The third round of selection has begun. Duan Lingtian reacted immediately and followed. The first to take the stage in the third round were 20 young talents chosen from among the holders of tokens numbered 1 to 80. These 20 young talents advanced consecutively in the first 2 rounds of selection and qualified to participate in the third round of selection. Duan Lingtian's opponent was a young man in green. 4th level of the Void Realm. After detecting the other party's cultivation level, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned. When the 20 young talents took their positions, the voice of the young man in white came out. The martial arts competition begins. I give up. As soon as the young man in white finished speaking, a panicked voice sounded, extremely rapid. But he was Duan Lingtian's opponent, and the young man in green voluntarily admitted defeat. Duan Lingtian was caught off guard by the speed at which the other party admitted defeat and was stunned for a moment. You even killed a 5th-level Void Realm cultivator in a single blow. I'm far from your match. I hope you'll eventually qualify to participate in the 10 Dynasties martial arts competition. The young man in green nodded to Duan Lingtian before leaving. In his opinion, with the strength of this young man in purple, it is not difficult for him to advance to the first stage of today's Dynasty martial arts competition. Therefore, he wished the other party to obtain the qualification to participate in the 10 Dynasties martial arts competition. Thank you very much. Duan Lingtian responded with a smile. Immediately afterwards, Duan Lingtian became the first person to advance in the third round of selection. I give up. Soon, another voice was heard. But he was Long Yun's opponent and admitted defeat. Long Yun, the second to advance. Afterwards, Duan Lingtian and Long Yun headed to the same place, returning to the middle-level audience seats where the people from the Blackstone Empire were. Congratulations. A smile appeared on Prince Yang's face. At this moment, he could see that the representatives of the major empires around him were looking at him with eyes full of jealousy and envy, which made him feel elated. In the third round of selection, the competition became even more intense, with some people voluntarily giving up. It's my turn. Not long after, it was Su Li's turn. And Su Li was just going through the motions. His opponent directly admitted defeat without any hesitation. Su Li advanced. On the Blackstone Empire side, 3 young talents who qualified for the third round of selection all advanced. The 2 young talents of the Fufeng Empire were also lucky. They did not encounter any existence above the 6th level of the Void Realm, and they were able to advance one by one. In the third round of selection, only 45 young talents advanced. After another quarter of an hour's break, the 4th round of selection continued. The 4th round of selection aims to select 30 young talents. Duan Lingtian, Long Yun, and Su Li did not encounter any other young talents at the 7th level of the Void Realm and advanced easily again. However, after advancing this time, the middle-aged man in charge of recording the results asked them to stay. It seems that the final result of today is about to come out. Su Li's evenly condensed sound was clearly transmitted to Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian nodded. So early. Then, Duan Lingtian glanced at the sky. It was evening, and the sun hadn't fallen for a long time. Soon, the other 27 young talents also advanced one by one. The 4th round of promotion selection has concluded. Now, the 5th round of promotion selection begins. Whoever has been eliminated so far, no matter who it is, will have one chance to challenge. The voice of the young man in white clothes spread throughout the prison fighting arena, and it felt like thunder in people's ears. Those who feel they've been unlucky before can now proactively challenge the 30 young talents above the prison fighting arena. Remember, everyone only has one chance. If you lose, you won't be able to participate in the upcoming Dynasty Martial competition. The young man in white continued to add. Suddenly, in the middle-sized audience seats around the prison fighting arena, bursts of heavy breathing sounds suddenly rang out, rising and falling. The audience in the lower class seats also looked up at the sky above the prison fighting arena with anticipation. They all knew that this was the last chance for the group of young talents who had been eliminated previously. As long as you are capable and confident, you will never miss this opportunity. I've finally waited until this moment. A young man stood up from a seat in a medium-sized auditorium, flew out, and stood above the prison fighting arena, rubbing his hands together and speaking excitedly. Obviously, he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Duan Lingtian looked at the young man. He had some impression of this person. He was a warrior who had reached the 6th level of the Void Realm. He had bad luck before and met another warrior who had reached the 6th level of the Void Realm and was defeated by him. Soon, the young man chose an opponent. His opponent was only at the 5th level of the Void Realm. When he showed his cultivation level of 6th level in the Void Realm, 6th level in the Art of Thought, and 5th level in the Spiritual Weapon, his opponent immediately admitted defeat. And he advanced successfully. I'm coming too. With one person taking the lead, other young talents who felt that they had been unlucky in the past also came out one by one and began to challenge. Some people succeed in the challenge, while others fail. Even those who failed did not feel discouraged, but instead breathed a sigh of relief. At least, they tried their best and have no regrets. As time passed, almost all of the 5th level warriors in the Void Realm among the 30 young talents who advanced were eliminated by challenges. For a while, apart from the young talents who were above the 7th level in the Void Realm, there were only a group of young talents who were at the 6th level in the Void Realm. Including Duan Lingtian, Su Li, and Long Yun, nearly 10 young talents above the 7th level of the Void Realm were not challenged from beginning to end. However, there are some other young talents who have entered the 6th level of the Void Realm and are replaced from time to time. Time passes quietly. Before we knew it, red clouds began to appear in the sky and evening gradually fell. At this time, no one at the scene took the initiative to challenge. After a quarter of an hour, if no one challenges me again, today's Dynasty Martial Arts competition ends here. The young man in white stood above the prison fighting arena and spoke slowly, his voice clearly transmitted in all directions. Soon, a quarter of an hour passed and no one challenged again. Today's Dynasty Martial competition concludes here. The 30 young talents who have advanced will gather here again tomorrow. Then, you will gather with young warriors from various factions of the Han Dynasty to compete in the second stage of the Dynasty Martial competition. After the young man in white finished speaking, he flew away. The spectators in the prison fight arena also dispersed one after another. Today is just a warm-up. Tomorrow is the real excitement. Then, these 30 carefully selected young talents from the various empires will compete with the most outstanding young warriors of our Han Dynasty. It's really exciting. The audience in the lower seats gradually dispersed, but similar excited sounds continued to rise one after another. I must come early tomorrow to grab a good spot. Speaking of which, I was lucky today. I placed my bets on those talented young men who have reached the 7th level of the Void Realm. Although the odds weren't high, I still made a lot of money. You still want to get a good seat tomorrow? What a joke. I've decided. When most of the people have left, I'll reserve a spot and stay here. I'll stay here tonight. That's a good idea. Why didn't I think of it just now? Soon, many of the audience in the lower seats stopped and stared at the excellent seats, just like wolves that had been hungry for several days seeing their prey. Above the prison fighting arena, 30 young talents stood there quietly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And at this moment, bursts of whistling sounds were heard. Immediately afterwards, one could see figures flying out from the sky and standing above the prison fighting arena. These people all came from the empire to which the 30 young talents belonged. Now, these people's faces are filled with excitement. As for those empires where no one advanced, their representatives and a group of young talents left in disgrace. Duan Lingtian, Su Li Long Yun, congratulations. Prince Yong, along with the people from the Blackstone Empire, stood in midair not far from Duan Lingtian and the other two, and said with a smile, "One empire, 3 people promoted. Only the Blackstone Empire did it. This time, the Blackstone Empire is in the spotlight. Even just now, the person in charge of the prison fighting arena came to see King Yong in person and said that because of the Blackstone Empire's performance this time, the royal family of the Han Dynasty will bestow generous rewards on the Blackstone Empire." Duan Lingtian and Su Li smiled back at him. As for Long Yun, he remained calm from beginning to end, neither happy nor angry. However, at this moment, Duan Lingtian could clearly see that the glances that Long Yun gave him from time to time clearly contained a deep fighting intent. It was obvious that Long Yun still wanted to step on him and avenge his previous humiliation. "Brother Duan." Suddenly, a sound of energy condensed into a voice came to Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian could tell that it was Feng Tianwu's voice. Afterwards, Duan Lingtian said hello to Prince Yong and Su Li, and under the complicated gazes of everyone in the Blackstone Empire, he once again flew onto the upper audience seats and came to the side of the 3 members of the Feng family. "Tianwu." Duan Lingtian looked at Feng Tianwu and asked with a smile, "How much did you earn?" He guessed the reason why Feng Tianwu called him, which was nothing more than the bet on the low-grade yuan share. Feng Tianwu smiled bitterly and said, "Your odds are very low. In the 3rd and 4th rounds of selection, I bet all my low-grade yuan share, but in the end, I only won 300 low-grade yuan share." 300 low-grade yuan stones? Duan Lingtian was stunned, dumbfounded. So little? Although he guessed that his odds wouldn't be high, he didn't expect them to be this low. Isn't this too outrageous? He just wanted to earn some yuan share. He was not greedy, so he just wanted to double the money and get another 5,000 low-grade yuan share. Is it so difficult for his small wish to come true? Brother Duan, you're too impatient. Today's dynasty martial competition, to be frank, isn't really a true dynasty martial competition at all. It's merely a competition among the talented young men of your various empires. Elder Kong shook his head and added, "Tomorrow's dynasty martial competition is the real highlight. Then, you can let the young lady bet those low-grade yuan share on you. You will definitely make a lot of money. Of course, the premise is that you are sure to win all the time." Tomorrow. Duan Lingtian's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard this. Yes, tomorrow is the real beginning of the dynasty martial arts competition. By then, all the outstanding young talents of the entire Han dynasty, including their 30 newly promoted young talents, will gather together to compete for the qualification to participate in the 10 Dynasties martial arts competition. It is conceivable that the Dynasty martial arts competition starting tomorrow will definitely be more lively and exciting. Today, among the 30 young talents who have emerged from the various dynasties, only less than 10 of them are above the 7th level of the Void Realm. However, within the Han dynasty, there are far more young talents who have reached the 7th level of the Void Realm and above. In that case, Tianwu, you will keep those yuan share for me. Tomorrow, if I go on stage again, remember to bet all the yuan share on me." Duan Lingtian said to Feng Tianwu. Duan Lingtian now seemed to have seen a large pile of low-grade yuan share waving to him, waiting for him to collect them. What a pity. If I wasn't afraid that taking out the mid-grade and high-grade yuan share would attract too much attention, I would have bet all the yuan share I have on myself. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly, feeling extremely sorry that he couldn't be too outspoken. "Lingtian, you should come back with us today. Although the Han Dynasty capital seems peaceful, it is actually turbulent. You will be safest if you stay by my side." Feng Wudao looked at Duan Lingtian and suggested. His words were full of confidence. It was as if as long as Duan Lingtian stayed by his side, no one in the capital of the Han Dynasty would dare to touch Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian did not refuse Feng Wudao's kindness and agreed directly. He then said, "Uncle Feng, I'll go say hello to Prince Yong." Since he decided to continue living in the Feng family mansion, he had to say hello to Prince Yong. Immediately afterwards, Duan Lingtian moved and appeared near Prince Yong and a group of young talents from the Blackstone Empire. Soon, Duan Lingtian saw it. Now, Prince Yong was surrounded by several old men, chatting and laughing with them. He was in high spirits as if he had encountered some happy event. Although he didn't hear clearly what Prince Yong and the old men were talking about, Duan Lingtian could guess a few things. It's simply because 3 people from the Blackstone Empire advanced today. Duan Lingtian recognized that the elderly men surrounding Prince Yong were representatives of several other great empires. The Blackstone Empire, because of him, Su Li and Long Yun, has become very popular this time, making people from other major empires take notice of it. Prince Yong. Duan Lingtian suddenly spoke. His voice was not loud, but it still made Prince Yong come back to his senses. Duan Lingtian. Prince Yong looked over when he heard the voice. Prince Yong, your Blackstone Empire truly possesses hidden prowess. Such a young fellow, yet he already possesses a cultivation level that's thought to be above the 7th level of the Void Realm. Truly remarkable. Duan Lingtian, what a domineering name. He lives up to his name. After seeing Duan Lingtian, the old men were not stingy with their words of praise. Thank you all for your praise. I'm so ashamed to accept it. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled at the old men. Not bad. He's neither arrogant nor impatient, a good seedling. Several old men nodded in appreciation again. Prince Yong. At this time, Duan Lingtian stopped exchanging pleasantries with the old men and instead looked at Prince Yong and said, I won't be going back with you today. I'll be returning to the Feng family mansion with Uncle Feng and the others. Prince Yong nodded. Then we'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Duan Lingtian replied to Prince Yong, then said hello to Lydia Su before leaving with the 3 people from the Feng family. Prince Yong, does this Duan Lingtian from your Blackstone Empire know someone so influential that he's qualified to enter the premier seats of the prison fighting arena in the capital of the Han Dynasty? An old man looked at Duan Lingtian's receding figure and asked Prince Yong curiously. The prison fighting arena in the capital of the Han Dynasty has 3 levels of spectator seats. With a little inquiry, you can find out clearly. The old man who asked King Yong obviously knew it in advance. King Yong nodded in response to the old man's question. He just said Feng family mansion? Feng family. Could it be the Feng clan? When the figures of Duan Lingtian and the 3 Feng family members disappeared from his sight, the other old man reacted. His pupils couldn't help but shrink, and he asked in horror. Immediately afterwards, the eyes of several old men fell on Prince Yong. Who in the Han Dynasty didn't know the Feng family? The Feng family is a powerful family in the Han Dynasty, second only to the royal family. It is said that even the royal family of the Han Dynasty did not dare to really conflict with the Feng family. Perhaps, with the royal family's background and strength, it is enough to destroy the Feng family. But even if the Feng family was destroyed, the royal family would certainly suffer great losses and be severely damaged. This shows how terrifying the Feng family is. Because of this, the Feng family had an extremely high status in the Han Dynasty and could be described as a second to none and above 10,000 people. Now, a young man from the Blackstone Empire actually has a relationship with a high-ranking figure who is suspected to be from the Feng family? This had to shock them. Yes, it's the Feng family. Facing the inquiring gazes of the 3 old men, King Yong nodded. To him, it was no secret. Even more so, as long as the top leaders of all the major forces of the Han Dynasty gather together tomorrow, the identity of that person from the Feng family will be exposed and will be difficult to conceal. Although they had some guesses, the 3 old men couldn't help but gasp when they heard Prince Yong's personal confirmation. Prince Yong, do you know which senior member of the Feng family that was just now? An old man couldn't help but ask curiously. Whoever is the strongest in the Feng family is him. Prince Yong spoke slowly. While the old men were dumbfounded, Duan Lingtian called out to the other 8 young talents of the Blackstone Empire, and they flew away together. It was not until the figures of Prince Yong and others disappeared into the horizon that the old men came to their senses and were moved. I never thought that the Blackstone Empire would produce not only one powerful young man, but also one who is more suitable for the Feng family's master. It's more than just a simple connection. The woman in red who was just following the Feng family master, if I'm not mistaken, should be the woman who came in and caused such a sensation, the daughter of the Feng family master, Master Wu Dao. I see that Lord Wu Dao's daughter and Duan Lingtian seem to be very close. Could it be that the two of them? As the old men speculated, they couldn't help but gasp. It seems that it's not just Duan Lingtian who we can't mess with. Even the Blackstone Empire is something we can't mess with from now on. Soon, the old men reached a consensus. Duan Lingtian was naturally unaware of all this. Now he and Feng Wudao, Feng Tianwu, and Kong Lao have returned to the Feng family mansion, back to the vast mansion within the mansion. And Supa also prepared a sumptuous dinner for them. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Elder Kong looked at Duan Lingtian. Brother Duan. Duan Lingtian looked at Kong Lao curiously, with a hint of doubt on his face. He didn't know what Kong Lao wanted to do. Call. When Kong Lao raised his hand, a 3-foot-long green sword appeared in his hand. Around the 3-foot-long green sword, there seemed to be wisps of black light flowing. 4th grade spiritual sword. At just one glance, Duan Lingtian recognized the grade of the spiritual sword. He also guessed the purpose of old Kong taking out the spiritual sword and felt a little warm in his heart. Brother Duan, I know you use a sword. In tomorrow's Dynasty Martial competition, you will definitely encounter some young and powerful Han Dynasty warriors who possess 4th grade spiritual weapons. If you don't have a 4th grade spiritual weapon, you will be at a disadvantage. I asked an old friend to forge this sword several years ago, and I'm giving it to you today. As Master Kong spoke, he handed the 4th grade spiritual sword in his hand to Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian did not reach out to take it. Instead, he shook his head and said, Master Kong, please put it away. I don't need this 4th grade spiritual sword. I don't need it. Duan Lingtian's attitude was very clear. He did not need this 4th grade spirit sword. Brother Duan, now is not the time to be polite. How about this? If you feel embarrassed to accept this sword from me, then just think of it as me lending it to you. Old Kong thought Duan Lingtian was unwilling to accept his gift, so he took a step back and suggested. Seeing Duan Lingtian's indifference, Feng Tianwu, who was sitting next to him, couldn't stand it anymore and urged him, Brother Duan, just accept it. This is a kind gesture from Grandpa Kong. Also, as Grandpa Kong said, at tomorrow's Dynasty Martial Arts competition, many of the Han Dynasty's young talents will surely possess 4th-rank spiritual weapons. If you don't have a 4th-rank spiritual weapon, you'll be at a disadvantage. By the end, Feng Tianwu herself was getting a little anxious. When Feng Tianwu began to persuade him, a bitter smile appeared on Duan Lingtian's lips. After Feng Tianwu finished speaking, the bitter smile on Duan Lingtian's face deepened. Tianwu, Kong Lao, I know you mean well, but I really don't need this 4th grade spiritual sword. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly. Why doesn't anyone believe the truth these days? A 4th grade spiritual sword? It was just something he had left over from playing with, and to him, it was no different from garbage. Don't try to persuade me. The spiritual sword in Ling Tian's hand is of a higher grade than the one in your hand, Elder Kong. Just when Feng Tianwu and Kong Lao were stunned, Feng Wudao spoke. From his words, he seemed to know Duan Lingtian's background very well. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but secretly gasp. He never expected it. When he was participating in the first stage of the promotion selection of the Dynasty Martial competition today, he only made a fleeting sword move, but it was actually seen through by Feng Wudao. In terms of grade, is it higher than this spiritual sword? Feng Wudao's words made Kong Lao couldn't help but take a deep breath. He looked at the black sword in his hand and muttered to himself. Doesn't that mean? Is the spiritual sword in Duan Lingtian's hand a spiritual sword of higher grade than the 4th grade spiritual sword? Could it be a 3rd grade spiritual sword? Dad, you mean, the spiritual sword in Brother Duan's hand is a 3rd grade spiritual sword? At this time, Feng Tianwu also came back to her senses from Feng Wudao's words and asked in a trembling voice. A 3rd grade spiritual sword is a 3rd grade spiritual weapon. A 3rd grade spiritual weapon was beyond her reach even for her. It's just because there were no 3rd grade weapon refiners in the Han Dynasty, so it is difficult for a 3rd grade spiritual weapon to appear. In the Han Dynasty, there was only one known 3rd grade spiritual weapon, and it was in the hands of the Han Dynasty royal family. Even the Feng family does not have a 3rd grade spiritual weapon. And now, she heard that Duan Lingtian had a 3rd grade spiritual weapon in his hands. How could she not be shocked? You'll have to ask him about that. Feng Wudao did not answer directly, but looked at Duan Lingtian, who looked helpless. Brother Duan. Feng Tianwu immediately looked at Duan Lingtian. Do you really have a 3rd rank spiritual sword? Duan Lingtian did not deny it, nor did he intend to deny it. After all, as long as he still wants to participate in the dynasty martial competition, the 3rd grade spiritual sword in his hand will be exposed sooner or later. It doesn't matter whether you expose it early or late. Moreover, he trusted the people in front of him and was not worried that they would do anything bad to him because he had a 3rd grade spiritual weapon in his hand. Duan, Brother Duan, can you let me see your 3rd rank spiritual sword? I've never seen a 3rd rank spiritual weapon before. Feng Tianwu's pretty face flushed slightly with excitement, and she looked at Duan Lingtian eagerly. Of course. Duan Lingtian nodded and took out his purple myrtle soft sword without any hesitation. This Ziwei soft sword was upgraded to the level of a 3rd grade spiritual weapon by the remaining materials he used to upgrade Zhang Shouyong's spiritual gourd last time. The appearance of the current Ziwei soft sword is no different from before. But around the sword, there seemed to be wisps of purple light rhythmically moving, like little purple snakes, reluctant to leave the Ziwei soft sword. After Feng Tianwu took the Ziwei soft sword, she couldn't wait to pour her energy into it. Wow! In an instant, the power of heaven and earth began to surge in the void above Feng Tianwu's head. First, 10 phantoms of ancient horned dragons condensed, and then 7 phantoms of ancient horned dragons condensed. The latter was obviously amplified by the Ziwei soft sword. 70%? A 70% increase. Looking at the shadows of 17 ancient horned dragons in the void above her head, Feng Tianwu's pretty face changed color and she looked a little out of control. A pair of eyes like autumn water were filled with a hint of disbelief. A 70% increase. At this time, Feng Wudao, Kong Lao, and Su Pe, who were sitting beside them, were also stunned. Especially Feng Wudao. Although, as early as when Duan Lingtian attacked today, he had already seen that the sword Duan Lingtian used was a 3rd grade spiritual sword. But he just thought it was an ordinary 3rd grade spiritual sword. In the Han Dynasty, an ordinary 3rd grade spiritual sword was enough to shock people. He never imagined that the 3rd grade spiritual sword in Duan Lingtian's hand was the best of the best among the 3rd grade spiritual weapons. How many 3rd grade spiritual weapons with a 70% increase in power could there be in this world? Brother Duan, where did you get this 3rd rank spiritual sword? Feng Tianwu was so frightened that the hand holding the sword trembled. If I say I made it myself, would you believe me? Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. At this moment, he seemed to be completely oblivious to the slightly dull looks from Feng Wudao, Kong Lao, and Su Pe. Brother Duan, are you telling the truth? Did you really make this yourself? Although Feng Tianwu found it incredible, She understood Duan Lingtian's character and knew that Duan Lingtian would not do anything without a purpose. Guaranteed genuine. Duan Lingtian shrugged and smiled slightly. Seeing Feng Tianwu's beautiful face become dazed, Duan Lingtian said again, "Tianwu, if you want a third-grade spiritual weapon, Brother Duan can help you refine it. However, Brother Duan currently doesn't have the necessary materials, so you need to provide them yourself." Duan Lingtian spoke very casually. It was like refining a third-grade spiritual weapon, which was nothing to him. Certainly. In fact, refining a third-grade spiritual weapon was really nothing to Duan Lingtian. "Brother Duan, you want to help me refine a third-grade spiritual weapon?" Feng Tianwu came back to her senses, with a hint of excitement on her pretty face, and asked uncertainly. "Third-grade spiritual weapon. Not to mention her, even her father doesn't have it. Looking at the entire Feng family, there is no third-grade spiritual weapon. Now, she has a chance to obtain a third-grade spiritual weapon? How could she not be excited?" As for the material issue, she didn't care. With the Feng family's background, not to mention the materials needed for a third-grade spiritual weapon, even the materials needed for a second-grade spiritual weapon might be gathered. Duan Lingtian nodded. "Father." After Feng Tianwu received Duan Lingtian's confirmation, she looked towards Feng Wudao. At this time, Feng Wudao had come back to his senses and heard the conversation between Duan Lingtian and his precious daughter. He looked at Duan Lingtian and said, "Lingtian boy, what materials do you need?" Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and a pen and paper appeared in his hand, on which he wrote a bunch of information. "So many materials are needed?" Looking at the densely packed words on the paper Duan Lingtian handed over, Feng Wudao was somewhat surprised. "The material I wrote above. It's enough to refine 4 regular, third-grade spiritual weapons. Then, Tianwu will have 1, Uncle Feng will have 1, and Old Kong and Grandma Su will each have 1. Duan Lingtian explained slowly. The reason why the word conventional was added was because of the shadow that Zhang Shouyong's spiritual weapon gourd brought to Duan Lingtian. The amount of materials required for that spiritual gourd is so great that it is simply incomparable to that of an ordinary third-grade spiritual weapon. You still want to refine a third-grade spiritual weapon for the 3 of us?" Even though Feng Wudao had been a master for half his life, at this moment, he couldn't help but be shocked by Duan Lingtian's courage. Originally, he was already extremely shocked when he heard Duan Lingtian say that he could refine a third-grade spiritual weapon. After all, Duan Lingtian is really too young. In this world, can such a young third-rank weapon refiner really appear? However, the third-grade spiritual sword that Duan Lingtian took out, as well as the confidence that Duan Lingtian inadvertently revealed, made him realize that Duan Lingtian was probably not exaggerating. If Duan Lingtian was just bragging, then there was no way he would have offered to help his precious daughter refine a third-grade spiritual weapon. And now, Duan Lingtian not only planned to refine a third-grade spiritual weapon for his daughter, but also planned to refine a third-grade spiritual weapon for everyone present. "Brother Duan, you are not kidding, right?" Kong Lao's breathing quickened a little, and he asked uncertainly. His attainments in the art of inscriptions were considered top-notch throughout the Han Dynasty. But when it comes to weapon refining, he is a complete stranger. He had his own connections in the Han Dynasty, and his connections included the few 4th-grade weapon refiners in the Han Dynasty. But even so, he only had a few 4th-grade spiritual weapons. A 3rd-grade spiritual weapon, not to mention he himself didn't even dare to think about it. Even for his friends who were 4th-grade weapon refiners, it was an unattainable existence. And now, someone wants to help him refine a 3rd-grade spiritual weapon? The most important thing is that this person is Duan Lingtian. He had already experienced Duan Lingtian's magic several years ago. At that time, Duan Lingtian taught him a lot about the art of inscription, which benefited him greatly. At that time, he knew that this young man should not be underestimated. Although he was young, His attainments in the art of inscription far surpassed his own. He was so shocked that such a young man had attainments far superior to his own in the art of inscriptions. He felt as if he had been living a dog's life for most of his life. But now, this young man said that he could refine a third-grade spiritual weapon. If all this is true, doesn't that mean that this young man's attainments in the art of refining weapons are equally superb, enough to put the most outstanding old fellows in the art of refining weapons in the Han Dynasty to shame? Even Kong Lao didn't know why. At this moment, he actually felt a little secretly happy. Maybe it's because there are a few more people around me who share the same suffering as me. Mr. Kong, why would I lie to you? Facing Elder Kong's doubts, Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Once all the materials are complete, I will work together to refine a third-rank spiritual weapon for you. Old Kong, the clan should have a collection of these materials. You can go there. Feng Wudao raised his hand and handed the piece of paper with all the information written on it to Kong Lao. Old Kong nodded, took the paper, and left. Duan Lingtian continued to sit at the table, sipping the tea that Grandma Su had brewed for him. At this moment, he felt extremely calm. However, at this moment, only Duan Lingtian could remain calm. Whether it was Feng Wudao and his daughter who were sitting beside them, or Su Pa who was standing beside them, their faces were all changing with emotion. From time to time, they looked at the young man in purple who was sitting there quietly drinking tea, and they felt that they could no longer see through him. Half an hour later, Old Kong came back, bringing back a pile of materials written by Duan Lingtian. As expected of a powerful family second only to the imperial family in the Han Dynasty, the Feng family's profound heritage is truly astonishing. Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that Old Kong could prepare so many materials in just half an hour. Now that he had the materials, Duan Lingtian planned to refine a third-grade spiritual weapon. First, Duan Lingtian sorted out the pile of materials that Kong Lao took out from the storage ring while questioning Feng Wudao, Feng Tianwu, Kong Lao, and Su Pa. The main question is what spiritual weapons they usually use. There are many types of spiritual weapons, such as spiritual knives, spiritual swords, spiritual spears, etc. Brother Duan, please help me refine a spiritual whip. Feng Tianwu's pretty face flushed slightly with excitement. Hearing Feng Tianwu's words, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but recall the scene when he first met Feng Tianwu in Fengqi city of the Blackstone Empire. At that time, on the martial arts competition to win a bride arena, he and Feng Tianwu met for the first time and fought each other. He still remembered that the weapon Feng Tianwu used at that time was the spirit whip. Good. Duan Lingtian smiled and nodded, then immediately began to prepare the spirit whip for Feng Tianwu. The spirit whip is not a special spirit weapon, and the materials required are not much different from those of spirit knives and swords. Laugh. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and a wisp of purple flame suddenly rose from his palm. Around the purple flame, there were faint traces of copper edges flickering. Purple copper fire. Kong Lao's pupils shrank, and he cried out in surprise. As an outstanding inscription master, and with a good relationship with the fourth-grade weapon refiners of the Han Dynasty, Kong Lao also has a certain understanding of high-level weapon fire. He knew it clearly. Purple copper weapon fire is the third-grade weapon fire, which can only be condensed by a third-grade weapon refiner. At this moment, he no longer had any doubts about Duan Lingtian's identity as a third-grade weapon refiner. Feng Wudao, who was standing aside, also showed a bit of surprise in his eyes. Although he had been mentally prepared, he still couldn't help but be shocked when he actually saw Duan Lingtian condense the third-grade pill fire. As expected of the lady's destined man, he is truly extraordinary. Grandma Su stood aside, muttering to herself. Su Po's voice was not loud, but who among those present was not a person with profound cultivation and unique hearing? Except for Duan Lingtian, who was concentrating on refining the weapon, The rest of the people clearly heard Su Po's muttering. Feng Tianwu's pretty face turned slightly red. She glanced at Duan Lingtian secretly, and when she found that Duan Lingtian didn't seem to hear what Supa said, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Her heart is beating very fast now. Because of that prophecy, she had a strange feeling towards Duan Lingtian, who had once powerfully defeated her. This feeling brought her and Duan Lingtian very close. Right now, Duan Lingtian naturally didn't notice Feng Tianwu's guilty glances from time to time. Right now, he was completely immersed in refining the weapon. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Duan Lingtian's hands moved incredibly quickly, like streaks of lightning, constantly crossing each other. At the same time, the pile of refining materials in his hand were quickly melted into pools of liquid by the third-grade fire, constantly rolling in the void. What a wonderful weapon refining technique! Kong Lao exclaimed. Although, he is an outsider in the art of refining weapons. But as the saying goes, even if you haven't eaten pork, you've seen pigs run. In the past, Mr. Kong had seen 3 fourth-grade weapon refiners refine 4th-grade spiritual weapons. But in his eyes, the refining skills of the 3 4th-grade refiners could not be compared with the refining skills of the purple-clothed young man in front of him. Not on the same level at all. 2 hours later, between Duan Lingtian's hands, which were raging with the 3rd-grade weapon fire, the prototype of a long whip was slowly taking shape. Now, it's the final moment. It took less than an hour to completely refine the spirit whip. Duan Lingtian was still focused, staring intently at the spirit whip taking shape in his hand, as if he was staring intently at his beloved. This scene made Feng Tianwu feel slightly excited. It was the first time she saw Duan Lingtian so focused. It was undeniable that Duan Lingtian's current appearance was very charming and completely attracted her. Even without her knowing it, he quietly captured her heart. At this moment, she seemed to have forgotten the so-called prophecy and was no longer bound by it. She truly fell in love with this charming man. Alas, a girl cannot be kept at home when she grows up. As someone who had experienced this, Feng Wudao naturally noticed the change in his precious daughter's eyes and couldn't help but sigh. In less than an hour, the purple copper pill fire in Duan Lingtian's hand suddenly extinguished. Call. And an exquisite crimson long whip slowly fell into his hand, with strands of crimson luster flashing on it, which was extremely gorgeous. Tianwu. Duan Lingtian smiled and handed the whip to Feng Tianwu. Try it. Thank you, Brother Duan. Feng Tianwu's pretty face was filled with uncontrollable excitement. She took the whip from Duan Lingtian's hand as if it were a treasure. She took a deep breath and let the yuanli in her hand rage, merging into the whip. Suddenly, the crimson whip seemed to be endowed with spirituality. When it was flicked, it seemed to turn into a crimson python. Call out. Feng Tianwu shook his hand, and the long whip swept out instantly, like a poisonous snake coming out of a cave, with great momentum. At the same time, 10 phantoms of ancient horned dragons appeared in the sky, followed by 7 more phantoms of ancient horned dragons. The shadows of 17 ancient horned dragons converged together, lifelike and powerful. Another 70% increase. Feng Tianwu put away the spiritual whip in her hand and looked at the gradually disappearing shadows of 17 ancient horned dragons in the void above her head. She couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. This. Feng Wudao, Kong Lao, and Su Pe, who were standing aside, were also stunned. The scene before them was completely beyond their expectations. It wasn't because they witnessed Duan Lingtian refining a 3rd-grade spiritual weapon that they were so surprised. As early as when Duan Lingtian condensed the purple copper pill fire, they knew that Duan Lingtian was indeed a 3rd-rank refiner, and it was not difficult for a 3rd-rank refiner to refine a 3rd-rank spiritual weapon. Now, the reason they were surprised was because of the amplifying power of the spirit whip in Feng Tianwu's hand. Although they had previously witnessed the 70% amplification power of Duan Lingtian's sword, they simply thought it was Duan Lingtian's good luck. Only then was he able to refine the best of the best among the third-grade spiritual weapons. Who would have thought that Duan Lingtian would refine another third-grade spiritual weapon that could amplify 70% this time? It left them in shock. Could it be luck? For a moment, not only Feng Wudao and the other two, but even Feng Tianwu was shocked by the amplifying power of the spirit whip in her hand. To them, it might be luck. Soon, the four people's gazes fell on Duan Lingtian again. Now, Duan Lingtian has begun to refine the second, third-grade spiritual weapon. This third-grade spiritual weapon is refined for Feng Wudao, whose personal weapon is his sword. Duan Lingtian was very familiar with the sword, so he refined it even faster than the spiritual whip in Feng Tianwu's hand. In just 2 hours, Duan Lingtian refined a brand new, third-grade spiritual sword. So fast. Duan Lingtian's weapon refining speed was so fast that even Kong Lao, who had witnessed a fourth-grade weapon refiner refining a fourth-grade spiritual weapon, could not help but gasp. If he remembered correctly, even among the well-known fourth-grade weapon refiners in the Han Dynasty that he knew, the fastest one in refining spiritual weapons seemed to take more than 10 hours to refine a fourth-grade spiritual weapon. But when it came to Duan Lingtian, the higher-grade, third-rank spiritual weapon could be successfully refined in just 2 hours. Humph, those guys used to brag in front of me a lot. If they knew that it only took Brother Duan 2 hours to refine a third-grade spiritual weapon, I don't think any of them would dare to brag anymore. Kong Lao hummed softly and muttered to himself. Uncle Feng. Duan Lingtian raised his hand, and the 3-foot-long green sword in his hand whizzed out and was carried by his Yuanli to float in front of Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao nodded slightly, then raised his hand, and the 3-foot green sword in front of him was already in front of Feng Tianwu. Father! Feng Tianwu was stunned. Let's try it, Feng Wudao said to Feng Tianwu. Upon hearing this, Feng Tianwu took a deep breath and put the third-rank spiritual whip in her hand into her storage ring as if it were a treasure. Then she grasped the third-rank spiritual sword that Duan Lingtian had just refined. The third-grade spiritual sword is emerald green in color, with faint green light flickering around it. Combined with the sharp sword edge, it gives people a feeling of being indestructible. Call. The yuan power in Feng Tianwu's hand rose, and then poured into the third-grade spiritual sword. Immediately following. Wow. In the void above Feng Tianwu's head, the power of heaven and earth began to fluctuate, and the shadows of 10 ancient horned dragons condensed into shape, with their fangs and claws bared, winding down. On the side of the 10 ancient horned dragon phantoms, several more ancient horned dragon phantoms were rapidly forming. At the same time, Feng Wudao, Kong Lao, and Supa almost held their breath at the same time, looking solemnly at the slowly forming shadows of several ancient horned dragons. Soon, the shadows of 7 additional ancient horned dragons appeared before their eyes again. Another 70% increase. The corner of Kong Lao's mouth twitched, and his expression became a little dull. Grandma Su was stunned. As for Feng Wudao, a bold guess came to his mind. That's it. Any third-grade spiritual weapon refined by Duan Lingtian should be the best of the best. It's luck once or twice, but if it's the same the third time, it's unlikely to be luck again. As expected. As Duan Lingtian continued to attack, the last 2 third-grade spiritual weapons were refined by him, and they also showed the power of 70% amplification. At this time, Feng Wudao completely confirmed his guess. Any third-grade spiritual weapon refined by Duan Lingtian would definitely possess 70% amplification power. Now, not only Feng Wudao confirmed it, but even Feng Tianwu, Kong Lao, and Supa also confirmed it. For a moment, several people looked at Duan Lingtian as if they were looking at a monster. A third-grade weapon refiner at such a young age is enough to shock people. But Duan Lingtian is not only a third-grade weapon refiner, but also a weapon refiner who can easily refine a third-grade spiritual weapon with a 70% increase in power. Although, they knew nothing about weapon refiners above the third rank. But they could imagine that refining a third-grade spiritual weapon with a 70% amplification power would definitely not be an easy task for an ordinary third-grade weapon refiner. If I wasn't careful, it would be almost dawn. I'm going to take a rest. Duan Lingtian glanced at the four people who were staring at him with lively eyes, stretched himself, and immediately ran away. For a moment, only four people were left looking at each other. Monster. Finally, except for Feng Tianwu, Feng Wudao, Kong Lao, and Su Pa almost spoke in unison. Wooer, you should go back and rest for a while. It will be dawn soon. Then, the second phase of the Dynasty Martial Arts competition will begin. Feng Wudao said to Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu left as she was told. There was no sign of fatigue on her pretty face, and her autumn eyes were bright. She didn't look like someone who hadn't slept all night. In fact, for a warrior of Feng Tianwu's level, even if he sleeps less for 10 or 8 days, there will be no bad effects. It seems we still underestimated Brother Duan. Old Kong looked at the 5th-grade spiritual weapon in his hand repeatedly, and after a long time, he sighed. He must be the man destined for you, young lady. Grandma Su looked certain. I really underestimated him. Feng Wudao nodded slightly, looking repeatedly at the 3rd-grade spiritual sword in his hand. Unknowingly, a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. After Duan Lingtian returned to his room, he did not sleep. I didn't expect that after refining a spiritual weapon all night, I didn't feel sleepy at all. It seems that my memory has completely aligned with that of the reincarnation Martial Emperor. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. The complete consistency with the memories of the Samsara Martial Emperor meant that Duan Lingtian had truly inherited everything from the Samsara Martial Emperor, including certain aspects of his experience and methods. Take tonight's weapon refining, for example. In the past, Duan Lingtian would have collapsed from exhaustion after refining several spiritual weapons in a row. But now, I don't feel tired at all. Today, I refined those 3rd-grade spiritual weapons with ease, as if the weapon refining techniques and weapon refining experience I possessed were innate. Duan Lingtian spread his hands and watched intently. There are still a few hours until dawn. I can take a nap. As his thoughts raced, Duan Lingtian lay down on the bed, closed his eyes, and slowly fell asleep. He had a very long dream in his sleep. In his dream, he reunited with his 2 beautiful fiancées and lived a quiet and peaceful life, without fighting or pressure. Living in seclusion in the mountains, men farm and women weave. They live a free and easy life. Soon, Kuer and Xiao Feier became pregnant one after another. As he was about to become a father, Duan Lingtian seemed to realize something and woke up with a start. Brother Duan, we are about to set off. A pleasant voice came from outside the room. Duan Lingtian could tell that it was Feng Tianwu's voice. A bitter smile unconsciously formed on the corner of his mouth. I was about to get my fill of being a father, but with Tianwu's cry, this dream is shattered. While washing and changing clothes, Duan Lingtian's mind continued to flash with the images of 2 graceful and beautiful figures. It was his 2 fiancées. Kuer Li Fei. Kuer, Xiao Feier, how are you doing now? Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. Outside the territory. A majestic and steep mountain is covered with snow all year round, and the whole mountain seems to be covered with a layer of silver. Sudden. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 swift and graceful figures rose into the air side by side, and in a moment they were outside the snow-capped mountains, hovering in the air. These are 2 women dressed in white, with stunning looks that can be described as stunning. The 2 women are equally beautiful, but they are completely different types, and each has her own merits. Sister Feier. Suddenly, One of the women in white looked towards the south and murmured, "What do you think the young master is doing now?" As the woman spoke, her autumn eyes were filled with longing. I, I don't know either." The other woman in white shook her head gently. Her originally cold autumn eyes seemed to be melting, blooming with deep warmth. "But I miss him." Duan Lingtian, Feng Wudao, Feng Tianwu, and Kong Lao rose into the air together and left the mansion within the mansion. At this moment, Duan Lingtian saw 4 people gathered in front of him, led by a middle-aged man in white clothes with a handsome face. The middle-aged man had a look of majesty without being angry, and it was obvious that he had held a high position for a long time. Soon, Duan Lingtian noticed that the middle-aged man was looking over. Immediately afterwards, the middle-aged man and the 3 people behind him came towards him. Of course, Duan Lingtian was self-aware and knew that the other party was not here for him. Soon, under Duan Lingtian's gaze, the middle-aged man approached and smiled at Feng Wudao beside him. "Brother." "Mr. Kong." After greeting Feng Wudao, the middle-aged man looked at Kong Lao, who was beside Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao's expression remained unchanged as he nodded lightly. "Chief." But Kong Lao responded with a smile. "Master, Senior Kong." At this time, the 3 people following the middle-aged man saluted and greeted Feng Wudao and Kong Lao with slight respect. "Tianwu." The middle-aged man looked at Feng Tianwu and smiled. "They say girls change a lot when they grow up. This saying couldn't be more accurate when applied to you." "Second uncle." Feng Tianwu nodded and saluted the middle-aged man, but was not very enthusiastic. In fact, she and the other party had little interaction in the past. Finally, the middle-aged man looked at Duan Lingtian again and asked curiously, "Who is this?" Duan Lingtian raised his brows. Now, he also knew the identity of the middle-aged man. He was undoubtedly the current patriarch of the Feng family, whose name seemed to be Feng Tianan. "Clan leader, this is brother Duan Lingtian." Elder Kong introduced Duan Lingtian to Feng Tianan. Then he said to Duan Lingtian, "Brother Duan, this is the patriarch of our Feng family." "So it's brother Duan. I'm so sorry." Feng Tianan looked at Duan Lingtian and forced a friendly smile on his face. "Phoenix Patriarch." Duan Lingtian forced a smile in response, not losing his composure because the other party was the patriarch of the Feng family. Duan Lingtian didn't know that his composure, in Feng Tianan's eyes, had become unfathomable. Ever since he heard Master Kong call him Brother Duan, Feng Tianan has looked up to him a little more, because Feng Tianan knew that Master Kong would not casually call a junior brother. The person who can be addressed like this by Master Kong must be extraordinary. "Brother, let's go." After Feng Tianan greeted Feng Wudao with a slight hint of respect, and Feng Wudao responded, Duan Lingtian and the Feng family members flew out of the Feng family mansion and headed towards the prison fighting arena. On the way, Duan Lingtian began to look at the other 3 people who were following closely behind Feng Tianan. Among the 3, 2 are over 70 years old, and only 1 is a young person. The young man was a young man in plain clothes. After greeting Feng Wudao and Kong Lao, his expression returned to calm, and he seemed indifferent to everything around him. Could this person be Feng Yunxiang of the Feng family? Out of curiosity, Duan Lingtian's mental power swept out, and in an instant, he detected the other party's cultivation level. The 8th level of the virtual realm? Duan Lingtian was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the Feng family had such a powerful young talent. No wonder the Feng family's descendants are saying that Feng Yunxiang is the strongest among the Feng family's young generation. It seems that his reputation is not in vain. Duan Lingtian thought secretly. At this moment, Duan Lingtian could almost confirm that this young man was Feng Yunxiang, the strongest young man of the Feng family today. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian noticed that Kong Lao turned around and gave him a meaningful look. Duan Lingtian reacted and smiled awkwardly. He knew that he must have been discovered by old Kong when he was using his mental power to investigate Feng Yunxiang just now. With Kong Lao's extremely powerful mental power, it is not difficult to discover his mental power. Mr. Kong's strength is not simple. Now, Duan Lingtian, who possessed the spiritual power of the second level of the Void Realm, could still sense the huge gap between him and Kong Lao. According to Duan Lingtian's guess, the 10th master of Kong Lao is in existence above the 7th level of the Void Realm. At least, Kong Lao's spiritual power level is above this 7th level of the Void Realm. Brother Duan, I heard you're from the Blackstone Empire? Are you here to participate in the Dynasty Martial Arts competition? On the way, Feng Tianin seemed very interested in Duan Lingtian and took the initiative to ask questions. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. This was no secret. It seems that Feng Tianin had already investigated his identity clearly a long time ago and was just pretending not to know him just now. Brother Duan is very talented. I heard that 3 people from the Blackstone Empire passed the first stage of the Dynasty Martial competition yesterday. One of them should be you, Brother Duan, right? Feng Tianin said this and looked at Duan Lingtian deeply. Duan Lingtian nodded again. He's one of the most talented young men in our Feng family. Brother Duan, you might want to meet him. His name is Feng Yunxiang. Then, Feng Tianin introduced Feng Yunxiang, who was following closely behind him, to Duan Lingtian. I've heard of it. Duan Lingtian smiled slightly and glanced at Feng Yunxiang, but found that the latter didn't even look at him. Duan Lingtian was not surprised by this. As the most outstanding young talent in the Feng family, it is inevitable that he is a little arrogant. Although, with Feng Tianwu around, he might not be the most outstanding young talent in the Feng family. These two are the first and second elders of our Feng family. Feng Tianin introduced the other 2 old men to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian nodded to the 2 old men. However, the 2 old men never even glanced at Duan Lingtian, let alone paid any attention to him. It was obvious that neither Feng Yunxiang nor the 2 old men seemed to take Duan Lingtian seriously. Humph, you're taking advantage of your age. After Feng Tianwu noticed Duan Lingtian's awkward situation, she couldn't help but hum and help Duan Lingtian out. Feng Tianwu's words made the 2 old men's expressions change slightly, but they did not get angry in the end. What a joke. This woman was no ordinary woman, and the one standing behind her was far beyond the reach of the 2 of them. If they really angered that person, they would be in danger of death. Although no one knew what happened to the 3rd elder's disappearance, they were able to guess who did it through some clues. But even if they successfully guessed it, they could only bury it in their hearts. Once it is exposed, they will be the only ones to die. Seeing Feng Tianwu defending him like this, Duan Lingtian felt warm in his heart. Brother Lingtian. Seeing that the prison fighting arena was not far away, Duan Lingtian suddenly heard a loud voice in his ears. Duan Lingtian looked over when he heard the sound. In the distance, 5 people were flying towards them. One of them accelerated first and arrived in front of Duan Lingtian in a moment. Brother Zhang. Seeing the person coming, Duan Lingtian showed a bright smile on his face. The person who came was none other than Zhang Shouyong, the eldest son of the Zhang family. After not seeing him for many days, Zhang Shouyong is still as energetic and vibrant as ever. Greetings to Master Wu Dao, Senior Kong. After Zhang Shouyong smiled at Duan Lingtian, he hurriedly looked at Feng Wudao and Kong Lao and bowed slightly. Phoenix Patriarch. Finally, he looked at Feng Tianan and nodded slightly in greeting. As for the 2 elders of the Feng family, he ignored them at all. Feng Wudao nodded calmly to Zhang Shouyong. Zhang Shouyong didn't care about this. In fact, in his opinion, the person in front of him nodding to him was the greatest respect for him. A friendly smile appeared on Kong Lao's face. Patriarch Zhang has an outstanding son. I never thought that you, my nephew, actually knew Brother Duan so well. Feng Tianan said with some surprise. Brother Ling Tian and I have known each other for several years. We can be said to be destined to meet each other. Zhang Shouyong nodded, and then added, I have always been proud to know him as a friend. Between the words, he highly praised Duan Lingtian. Brother Duan is indeed extraordinary. Feng Tianin agreed. This should be Miss Tianwu, the daughter of Master Wu Dao, right? At some point, Zhang Shouyong's gaze fell on Feng Tianwu, and a friendly smile appeared on his face. Brother Zhang, since you're Brother Duan's friend, you're also my friend. Just call me Tianwu. Feng Tianwu returned Zhang Shouyong a friendly smile. Haha, okay, Tianwu. Zhang Shouyong was a straightforward person and agreed immediately. However, the look he gave Duan Lingtian at this moment became even more strange. At the same time, he spoke in a concentrated voice. Brother Lingtian, you are truly capable. From what I can see, this Miss Tianwu seems to have already fallen in love with you. Duan Lingtian's lips twitched slightly when he heard Zhang Shouyong's frivolous words. He responded unyieldingly. Brother Zhang, are you envious of me? If so, I can discuss this with my sister-in-law and have you taken another concubine. You little brat, you're so cruel. After Duan Lingtian said this, Zhang Shouyong suddenly became like a frost-bitten eggplant and stopped arguing with Duan Lingtian. Or perhaps it could be said that Duan Lingtian had his weak spot pinned down. Lord Wu Dao, Mr. Kong, Phoenix clan leader. At this time, several members of the Zhang family who were left behind by Zhang Shouyong, led by the head of the Zhang family, came over and greeted Feng Wu Dao, Kong Lao, and Feng Tiannan with a little politeness. Among these people, there is also Zhang Shouyong's half-brother Zhang Shouyuan. For this reason, Duan Lingtian looked at him a few more times. After Zhang Shouyuan was stared at by Duan Lingtian, his normal expression instantly turned pale, as if Duan Lingtian was some kind of monster. The Zhang family was considered a powerful family in the Han dynasty. But in front of the Feng family, they are inferior in many ways. In the Han dynasty, the royal family was undoubtedly the most powerful force, followed by the Feng family. Below that are first-class forces such as the Zhang family. Unconsciously, the prison fighting field of the Han dynasty capital once again appeared before Duan Lingtian's eyes. Today's prisoner fight arena is undoubtedly much more lively than yesterday's prisoner fight arena. In addition to the lower-class auditorium, which was already full, the middle-class auditorium was also full, and even half of the 9 upper-class auditorium seats were occupied by quite a few people. The auditorium where Feng Wu Dao and the other 2 sat yesterday is now empty. Soon, Duan Lingtian and the Feng family fell into it. At this time, through Kong Lao's reminder, Duan Lingtian knew that this superior auditorium was originally reserved for the Feng family by the royal family of the Han dynasty. Brother Lingtian, I'll go over first. Zhang Shouyong greeted Duan Lingtian, then went with the Zhang family members to another superior auditorium and sat in the luxurious seats. However, half of the seats in that auditorium were already occupied. Those people are obviously not from the Zhang family. Master Kong, the Zhang family doesn't have a dedicated upper-class audience seat? Duan Lingtian asked Kong Lao curiously. Elder Kong shook his head. Only our Feng family and the royal family have a dedicated upper-class audience seat. The Zhang family, a first-class power, has its leaders qualified to ascend to the upper-class audience seat, but they don't have a dedicated seat. Duan Lingtian suddenly understood. As for those who hold special status in the Han dynasty, such as 4th-rank weapon refiners and 4th-rank alchemists, they also don't have exclusive seats here. However, as long as they come, everyone will warmly welcome them to sit next to them. Mr. Kong continued. Duan Lingtian was not surprised by this. Whether it is a 4th-grade weapon refiner or a 4th-grade alchemist, they are both extremely rare within the Han dynasty, and many people usually ask them to refine weapons and medicine. Any force would go to great lengths to curry favor with such an existence. Uncle Feng. Kong Lao Tian Wu. I'll go down first. Duan Lingtian glanced down and found that a group of people from the Blackstone Empire were already sitting in the middle audience seats from yesterday. He greeted Feng Wudao and the other two. Feng Wudao and the other two nodded slightly. Feng clan leader, goodbye. Then, Duan Lingtian nodded to Feng Tianan again before he flew out, leaving the upper-class auditorium and heading towards the middle-class auditorium. In a moment, Duan Lingtian appeared in front of Prince Yong and a group of young talents from the Blackstone Empire. Prince Yong. After Duan Lingtian greeted Prince Yong, he walked to Su Li's side and sat down. Master Qin. Duan Lingtian had just sat down when he heard a cry of surprise. The person who exclaimed was none other than the sword master, Long Yun, who came from the same empire as Duan Lingtian. Master Qin? Duan Lingtian was startled and turned to look at Long Yun with some confusion. Only then did he realize that Long Yun was staring at the distant sky, as if he had seen something that horrified him beyond words. Duan Lingtian followed Long Yun's gaze and took a look. In the distance, 3 figures appeared in front of Duan Lingtian. The leader was an elderly man. The old man was dressed in black, his skinny face was very calm, and his cloudy eyes were completely devoid of any luster. Although this old man in black looked like an ordinary old man, Duan Lingtian did not dare to underestimate him in the slightest. People like this are usually the most terrifying. Today, this prison fighting arena is filled with powerful warriors. I'm afraid there's no shortage of inscription masters with strong mental powers. Mental power shouldn't be used carelessly. Otherwise, I could use it directly to detect this old man's cultivation level. Duan Lingtian was still very confident in his own mental strength. The person Long Yun is looking at is not him. Then, Duan Lingtian looked slightly to the left, where Long Yun's gaze was. A young man in white was following closely behind the old man on his left side. He had a stern face and seemed indifferent to everything around him. Qin, young Master Qin. Looking at the young man in white, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be stunned. Duan Lingtian was no stranger to Master Qin Zishang. A few years ago, when the 7-Star Sword sect had not yet been destroyed, he was still in the 7-Star Sword sect. This young Master Qin had once come to the 7-Star Sword sect and even boasted that he wanted to marry his fiancée Kuro, which caused a considerable conflict between them. When they met for the first time, he made a 2-year agreement with Master Qin. 2 years later, Duan Lingtian and young Master Qin faced off. At that time, Duan Lingtian was far inferior to young Master Qin in terms of cultivation, but because his mental strength was stronger than young Master Qin's, and he also mastered the soul skill 1,000 Illusions, he could easily toy with young Master Qin. Duan Lingtian vividly remembered the scene on Tianji Peak, the main peak of the 7-Star Sword sect. At that time, young Master Qin had no power to fight back in front of his soul skill 1,000 Illusions, and finally fled in embarrassment. However, when escaping, Master Qin had threatened to seek revenge on him in the future. At that time, Duan Lingtian didn't take Master Qin's harsh words to heart at all. As time passed, his strength increased rapidly step by step, and he even forgot the threat from Mr. Qin in the past and did not take it seriously. In his opinion, with his current level of cultivation progress, young Master Qin must have been left far behind and could not pose any threat to him. Although, until now when he met Master Qin, he still thought so. But when he saw young Master Qin here recently, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Could it be that this young Master Qin Zishang is also here to participate in the Dynasty martial arts competition? Duan Lingtian was surprised, and his eyes fell on the figure behind the old man on his right side. This is a very hard and slender figure. The owner of the figure is a woman with a stunning appearance. She stands behind the old man on the right side, and she and young Master Qin stand on the right and left, just like a pair of golden boy and jade girl. Although Duan Lingtian didn't like young Master Qin's personality, he had to admit that he was indeed a handsome man. Fairy Xiao? Why is she here? Duan Lingtian was no stranger to this woman. She was none other than the fairy Xiao Ziyin, whom he had met in the imperial capital of the Qinglin Empire. She was also the younger sister of young Master Qin Zishang. What a beautiful woman. Yes, in our Han dynasty, there shouldn't be a woman who can compare to her in terms of appearance, right? It's so beautiful. Nowadays, not many people are flying around the prison fighting arena. The Qin brothers and sisters and the old man in black attracted many people's attention because of the presence of Xiao fairy Ziyan. Many people looked at Ziyan and were not stingy with their words of praise. Of course, there are also people who disagree with some people's statements. Humph, who said there's no woman in our Han dynasty who can compare to her. Are you all blind? Look at that high-class audience seat where the Feng family is sitting. Lord Wudao's daughter is no less beautiful than her. In the middle audience seats, a young talent from a certain force in the Han dynasty snorted. His words immediately made a group of people look up. Just one glance, and they were stunned. Is that the daughter of Lord Wudao who's been making the rounds in the capital lately? She's so beautiful. She's like a fairy who's fallen to earth. In terms of appearance, Lord Wudao's daughter is indeed no less beautiful than that woman. In terms of temperament, she is far superior to that woman. Of course, this is Lord Wudao's daughter. Suddenly, the attention of most people in the prison fighting arena shifted to Feng Tianwu of the Feng family. Duan Lingtian heard similar discussions. He strongly agreed with this. After all, Feng Tianwu and Ziyin came from different backgrounds and were not on the same level at all, so the temperaments they developed were naturally very different. Far in the sky, Master Qin Zishang was quietly following his master, when suddenly he felt a pair of eyes fixed on him. After a moment, he followed the gaze. Just one glance, and he couldn't help but look surprised. Master Dao. He was naturally familiar with young Master Dao Longyun, as he was once one of the 5 great young masters of the Qinglin Empire. However, what surprised him was that Longyun actually appeared here, and appeared in the middle audience seats. Could it be that Longyun is also here to participate in the dynasty martial arts competition? For a moment, Zishang couldn't help but feel a little surprised. In his opinion, today he was able to appear here and have the qualifications to participate in the dynasty martial arts competition and compete with many young talents of the Han dynasty, basically because of his master and some of his later adventures. Of course, when it comes down to it, it's all thanks to his master. Without his master, he would not have been able to come to the Han dynasty and have such an excellent environment for cultivation. If he had not come to the Han dynasty, he would not have had that adventure by chance. It is precisely because of this series of experiences that he has become who he is today. Duan Lingtian. Suddenly, a surprised cry clearly reached Zishang's ears. Zishang was recalling his experiences in recent years when he suddenly heard his sister's exclamation. He was stunned at first, and then his face changed. Duan Lingtian. He was naturally familiar with this name. In fact, in recent years, he had dreamt many times in the middle of the night that he wanted to kill this man as soon as possible to wash away the humiliation of the past. Yinner, where is Duan Lingtian? Zishang suddenly turned his head, looked at his sister, and asked excitedly. There. Ziyin naturally understood her brother's mood and quickly gestured to look into the distance. Then, Zishang took a look. A purple figure was sitting not far from Longyun. If his attention had not been on Longyun just now, he would have noticed it long ago. The young man in purple in the distance had undergone some subtle changes compared to a few years ago, but he still recognized him at a glance. Duan Lingtian. Looking at the young man in purple in the distance, Zishang's eyes widened and his body trembled slightly. At this moment, he seemed to have seen a mortal enemy. In fact, in Zishang's heart, he had long regarded the young man in purple in front of him as his mortal enemy, and the kind that he would not stop fighting until one of them died. He will never forget the humiliation that the other party brought him in the past. In his opinion, only when the other party dies can he vent the hatred in his heart. Zishang's loss of composure was noticed by the old man in black who was walking in front of him, his master. Zishang, what's wrong with you? Zishang took a deep breath and his agitated emotions could not calm down for a while, so he was unable to reply to the old man for the time being. Senior. At this time, Ziyin, who was standing on the other side, spoke up. It's that Duan Lingtian. The Duan Lingtian who humiliated my brother with his demon magic at Tianji Peak of the seven-star sword sect of the Qinglin Empire. Duan Lingtian. When the old man in black heard Ziyan's words, he followed the direction Ziyan pointed and looked towards a medium-sized auditorium in the distance. His eyes fell on a group of people from the Blackstone Empire. That young man in purple, the youngest one, he is Duan Lingtian. Ziyan added. He. The old man in black raised his eyebrows and muttered, I heard that at the first stage of the dynasty martial competition yesterday, a frighteningly young man in purple appeared. He looked to be around 25 years old, and his cultivation level was above the 7th level of the Void Realm. Could it be him you're talking about? As he spoke, a rare gleam of light flashed across the old man's originally cloudy eyes. Entering the 7th level of the Void Realm or above. The old man's words made Ziyin unable to help but be stunned. She said in disbelief, This? How is this possible? How could Duan Lingtian's progress be so fast? She couldn't believe it. Although she had witnessed Duan Lingtian's martial arts talent and knew that Duan Lingtian's talent was amazing. But at that time, Duan Lingtian was only better than the young talents of the Qinglin Empire. Looking at the Han Dynasty as a whole, the Qinglin Empire was just a tiny piece of land, not worth mentioning. In the vast land of the Han Dynasty, there are many strong people and geniuses. Therefore, the group of young talents in the Qinglin Empire are nothing compared to the entire Han Dynasty. Ziyin has felt all of this deeply since she came to the Han Dynasty. But now, she heard that Duan Lingtian's cultivation had actually broken through to the 7th level of the Void Realm. This fact was something she couldn't accept for a while. He also participated in the Dynasty Martial Arts competition. Zishang, who was standing nearby, heard the old man's words and his eyes suddenly lit up, his murderous intent hard to conceal. In that case, I have a chance to kill him with my own hands in front of a group of powerful men from the Han Dynasty. Now, Zishang's mood gradually calmed down, and he stared at Duan Lingtian with a look without any emotion. I heard he's quite capable, and among the young talents from the various empires who competed yesterday, he's considered one of the best. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, you'll have a chance to meet him. The old man in black said expressionlessly. He had heard about the story between his disciple and Duan Lingtian of the 7-star sword sect of the Qinglin Empire. In fact, with his strength and background, not to mention killing Duan Lingtian, even destroying the 7-star sword sect would be easy. But he didn't do that. He wanted his disciples to solve all of this personally. Get up from where you fell. This is how he has been teaching his disciples all along. Zishang nodded, and then he and Ziyin surrounded the old man and went to the superior auditorium. Master Qin. Duan Lingtian naturally noticed Zishang's cold gaze filled with murderous intent, but he didn't care. In his opinion, unless Zishang also had the same amazing adventure as him, even if he had a master in the Han Dynasty, he would not be able to catch up with him now. Even if I really fight him, I will just be a fish on his chopping board. When Duan Lingtian saw the Zishang siblings following the black-clothed old man straight to an empty, upper-class auditorium, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Simply because, now, among the 9 superior audience seats in the prison fighting arena, only that one was empty. Moreover, that superior audience seat happened to be located on the east side, clearly belonging to the host's seat. The host of the prison fighting arena is the royal family of the Han Dynasty. Who is that old man? He actually climbed into the upper-class audience seats reserved for the royal family. Suddenly, someone couldn't help but exclaim. Without an invitation from the royal family, even someone of special status in our Han Dynasty wouldn't dare to so abruptly ascend to that high-class auditorium. He must be a member of the royal family. Many people speculated. The royal family is filled with powerful individuals, many of whom rarely appear in public. Perhaps the old man in black is one of them. It's possible. In the prison fighting arena, a group of people were talking and guessing the identity of the old man. The more people guessed, the more certain they became. Someone from the royal family of the Han dynasty? Duan Lingtian raised his brows. To verify this, Duan Lingtian looked up at the superior auditorium that belonged to the Feng family. His Yuanli condensed into a voice that reached Feng Wudao's ears. Uncle Feng, is that old man in black a member of the royal family? Duan Lingtian asked Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao was originally resting with his eyes closed, and he remained indifferent even if the old man in black appeared. Hearing Duan Lingtian's condensed energy, he slowly raised his head and glanced at the upper-class seats reserved for the royal family. He said, "Yes, he's from the royal family. He's the uncle of the current emperor of the Han dynasty. He rarely appears in public and is quite independent. His strength is quite good." As he spoke, Feng Wudao's tone became a little heavier. This undoubtedly emphasizes the strength of the old man in black. Not bad. Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows and looked at the old man in black in surprise, although he heard a hint of indifference in Feng Wudao's tone. However, anyone who could earn such an evaluation from Feng Wudao obviously had his own unique qualities, which made Duan Lingtian feel a little wary of the old man. I never thought that Zishang would actually worship such a big shot as his master. Duan Lingtian thought secretly. Regardless of the outside the country, as long as we talk about the Han dynasty, the identity of this old man in black can indeed be regarded as a big shot. Zishang, formerly known as Young Master Qin, one of the 5 great princes of the Qinglin Empire, was just a young warrior with a good talent for martial arts in the Qinglin Empire. The identities of the two people are very different. How did they become master and apprentice? Duan Lingtian couldn't guess this. Logically speaking, with the identity and background of the old man in black, all he needs is one word, and many young talents in the Han dynasty who are more talented in martial arts than Zishang will be vying to become his disciples. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. Duan Lingtian shook his head. He really couldn't understand. Perhaps only the old man in black himself knew why he accepted Zishang as his disciple. His Majesty has arrived. Suddenly, a sound like thunder exploded in the sky far away from the prison fighting arena, and it came from afar, drowning out the extremely noisy sounds in the prison fighting arena. Immediately afterwards, the prison fighting arena fell into dead silence. Those who were chatting and discussing just now shut their mouths. Those who were looking around just now fixed their heads and stared straight at the direction where the sound came from. The emperor of the Han dynasty? Like most people present, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but look up towards the source of the sound after hearing it. Soon, the vast clouds in the distance slowly dissipated. At the same time, a luxurious sedan, gleaming golden under the morning sun, appeared before everyone's eyes. This sedan is very big. According to Duan Lingtian's estimation, it was twice as big as the sedan chair that Prince Yong rode when he appeared during the Blackstone Empire's Young Talent Competition. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Not only that, this golden and luxurious sedan chair was carried by 8 people, making it an 8-man sedan chair. These 8 people were 8 soldiers in armor, staring at the front with cold eyes. When they flew in the air, their movements were coordinated, giving people a visual shock. 8 people carried the sedan chair and flew into the air. The sedan chair was as steady as Mount Tai, without any bumps at all. The cultivation of these 8 people is probably not just the ordinary vision realm. Duan Lingtian looked at the 8 armored soldiers and couldn't help but wonder inwardly. Now, he felt itchy in his heart. He wanted to use his spiritual power to investigate the 8 people's cultivation, but he was also concerned about the presence of some inscription masters. The inscription masters here often reached the void realm, so Duan Lingtian did not dare to be careless. Although, Even if he exposed his mental power, as long as Feng Wudao was there, he would not be in any danger. But he couldn't stay with Feng Wudao forever. Therefore, he still advocates caution, as the saying goes. It is better to be safe than sorry. As expected of the emperor of the Han dynasty, what a grand ceremony. Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly as he looked at the 8-man sedan chair that slowly emerged from behind the clouds. Compared with the current scene. A year ago, in the imperial capital of the Blackstone Empire, the scene of Prince Yang's appearance was like a child playing house, not worth mentioning. There's someone behind us. Soon, the sharp-eyed Duan Lingtian discovered that in addition to the 8 soldiers carrying the sedan chair, there were 2 more people following behind. These are 2 young men. One was dressed in white and the other in black, forming an extremely sharp contrast. It's him. Duan Lingtian raised his eyebrows when he saw the young man in white. It seems that his guess yesterday was correct. This young man in white is indeed one of the 3 young talents recommended by the royal family of the Han dynasty to participate in the dynasty martial arts competition. It's the young man who hosted the dynasty martial arts competition yesterday. At this time, the audience in the prison fighting arena were also excited and recognized the young man in white. 2 young men followed the sedan chair carried by 8 people and arrived above the prison fighting arena in a blink of an eye. Whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, 2 more harsh voices were heard, attracting the attention of most people present. Immediately afterwards, under the gazes of everyone, 2 elderly figures appeared again behind the cloud of mist where the sedan chair was carried by 8 people. They were 2 energetic old men. In the blink of an eye, the 2 old men arrived in front of the sedan chair carried by 8 people and bowed. Your Majesty, we are honored to receive you. The 2 old men said respectfully in unison. At the same time, one of the old men stepped forward, lifted the curtain of the sedan chair door, and looked inside. Your Majesty, please. A majestic middle-aged man in a golden dragon robe slowly walked out of the sedan chair and stepped out into the air as if he were walking on flat ground. A dignified middle-aged man with a distinct mustache. He looks very distinctive. This 6-character mustache is very impressive, just like the cinnabar mole between Prince Yang's eyebrows is also very impressive. He is the emperor of the Han dynasty? Duan Lingtian's heart moved slightly. Welcome, Your Majesty. At this moment, except for a group of people in the upper audience seats who were still sitting in their seats, some of them did not make any movement. Most of the people in the lower and middle seats stood up and bowed respectfully to the emperor of the Han dynasty. Only Duan Lingtian stood up along with everyone else and nodded faintly without even bending his waist. Not many people saw this scene. But the emperor of the Han dynasty happened to see it. He glanced at Duan Lingtian with a smile and saw that Duan Lingtian did not bow. At this moment, Duan Lingtian stood out like a crane among chickens in the eyes of the emperor of the Han dynasty. For a moment, the smile on the emperor's face froze. People in the upper audience seats. It is understandable that there were no excessive actions. After all, the identities of each of them are extremely extraordinary. There were a few people whom even he didn't dare to provoke easily. Everyone else is bowing to me. Why aren't you bowing? The emperor reached out and stroked his mustache, then stared at Duan Lingtian and asked, Don't tell me. Do you think I'm not worthy enough to ask you to bow? Suddenly, there was an uproar at the scene. Everyone's gaze followed the emperor's and fell on Duan Lingtian. It's the young man from the Blackstone Empire. This young man, though young, possesses considerable strength. However, he dared not to show respect to His Majesty. How presumptuous of him. A person from a small empire dares not to pay his respects to the emperor of the Han dynasty. This is simply disrespectful. I think he's going to be in trouble. A group of people in the prison fighting arena were talking about it. Some people gloated over his misfortune, while others broke into a cold sweat for Duan Lingtian. Your Majesty, he was intimidated by Your Majesty just now, which is why he was disrespectful. I hope your majesty will forgive him." Seeing the emperor of the Han dynasty targeting Duan Lingtian, Prince Yong was frightened and broke out in a cold sweat. Although he was the strongest man in the Black Stone Empire, he was nothing in front of the emperor of the Han dynasty. If the other party wanted to kill him, all they needed was one sentence. "Who are you?" The emperor looked at Prince Yong and asked calmly. "Your Majesty, I am the representative of the Blackstone Empire and a prince of the Blackstone Empire's royal family." Prince Yong said to the emperor. "Blackstone Empire?" The emperor pondered for a moment, then said, "Are you the Prince Yong, known as the strongest man in the Blackstone Empire? I have heard of you." "Your Majesty, it's me." Upon hearing this, Prince Yong felt somewhat flattered, and a wry smile appeared on his face. The strongest person in the Blackrock Empire? Apart from anything else, among the group of strong men present, he could easily find a lot of people who were stronger than him. In this place, he, the so-called strongest man in the Blackrock Empire, is not worth mentioning at all. Is he from your Blackstone Empire? The emperor glanced at Duan Lingtian, then looked at Prince Yong and asked in a deep voice. "Yes." Prince Yong nodded. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead and his palms were cold. At this moment, he only hoped that the person from the Feng family would speak up in time to help Duan Lingtian out. He believed that as long as that person opened his mouth, the emperor of the Han dynasty would give him some face even if he was dissatisfied with Duan Lingtian. Since they are from the Blackstone Empire, you, as the representative, are equally to blame. Both of you will be punished. The emperor spoke calmly, as if he was talking about something insignificant. Why? At this moment, Duan Lingtian, who had been quietly watching the development of the situation, could no longer sit still. He moved and stood in front of Prince Yong. He looked up at the emperor of the Han dynasty and shouted softly. "Why?" Duan Lingtian's light shout echoed throughout the entire prison fighting arena. Hiss, 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 hiss. For a moment, the sound of people gasping for air could be heard one after another around the prison fighting arena. Most people just feel a tingling sensation on their scalp. Is this young man from the Blackstone Empire crazy? No matter how talented he was, he had not grown up after all. With just one word from the emperor of the Han dynasty, he would have almost no chance of survival. Why? The emperor's calm expression was finally broken by Duan Lingtian. He suddenly took a step forward and spoke in a majestic voice again. "Just because I am the emperor of the Han dynasty and rule over the entire Han dynasty. Is this enough?" Facing the emperor's pressure, Duan Lingtian remained calm. Or rather, he had no worries at all. Even if the emperor of the Han dynasty wanted to touch him, Feng Wudao would not agree. Not to mention that he has a close relationship with Feng Wudao's family now. Even if they didn't have a close relationship, Feng Wudao would not stand idly by. After all, he is the man destined for Tianwu in the prophecy, the man who can save Tianwu's life. Duan Lingtian. Su Li's face changed slightly, and he broke into a cold sweat for Duan Lingtian. As for the other young talents of the Blackstone Empire, except for Long Yun who had a blank expression, the others all looked at Duan Lingtian with some concern. "You are narrow-minded and make a mountain out of a molehill. I really don't know how the Han dynasty could have an emperor like you." Duan Lingtian looked up at the emperor, his face calm, and he spoke slowly. In Duan Lingtian's dictionary, it has always been, "I will not offend others unless they offend me." If someone really provokes him, he will not be afraid of it. No matter who the other party is, or what shocking identity he has. Presumptuous. Just as the emperor's face changed color due to Duan Lingtian's anger, the two old men guarding the sedan chair also changed color and shouted in shock. In addition, the 8 soldiers carrying the sedan chair also had cold glints in their eyes as they stared at Duan Lingtian intently. It seemed as if he was ready to abandon the sedan chair and attack Duan Lingtian at any moment. As for the other 2 young men, the expression of the young man in black changed slightly, while the young man in white looked at Duan Lingtian with a look of fear. Compared to other members of the royal family, he was more familiar with Duan Lingtian and knew that Duan Lingtian had a close relationship with that person from the Feng family. You are so shameless. You humiliate His Majesty. You deserve to be killed. An old man standing in front of the 8-man sedan chair. Just as he finished speaking, his entire body seemed to turn into a bolt of lightning, shooting straight towards where Duan Lingtian was. Father. In the premium audience seats reserved for the Feng family, Feng Tianwu looked at Feng Wudao anxiously. However, Feng Wudao did not make any move, but just shook his head. Don't worry, he will be fine. Almost at the moment Feng Wudao finished speaking, the old man was already not far from Duan Lingtian. He raised his hand, and a vast amount of yuanli raged. Then he slapped out with his palm, causing a turbulent storm. Wow! The next moment, a giant palm print condensed and roared out, covering Duan Lingtian's location. Stop! Just when Duan Lingtian thought Feng Wudao was about to make a move, a familiar voice sounded in his ears, filled with anxiety. Immediately afterwards, a sharp whistling sound came. Call out. A solid sword beam broke through the air and easily shattered the huge palm print that was sweeping towards Duan Lingtian. At the same time, call. A tall figure appeared in front of Duan Lingtian and protected him firmly behind him. Master Xiang. Thinking of the familiar voice just now and seeing the familiar figure in front of him, Duan Lingtian recognized the person who appeared in time to save him. It was Xiang Ying, the head of the treasure pavilion in Hanha City and the vice president of the Han Dynasty Equipment Refiners Association. We meet again. Let's catch up later. Xiang Ying turned around and smiled at Duan Lingtian before looking up again. He didn't look at the old man who attacked Duan Lingtian, but instead looked at the emperor of the Han Dynasty. Your Majesty, this is my little brother. For today's incident, please spare my little brother for once, for my sake. How about that? Xiang Ying. The emperor frowned slightly when he saw Xiang Ying appear. After hearing what Xiang Ying said, he shook his head and said, "This matter has nothing to do with you. You'd better not get involved." If it were something else, he might have given Xiang Ying some face. After all, Xiang Ying was one of the few 4th-grade weapon refiners in the Han Dynasty. Giving a 4th-grade weapon refiner some favors was intentional and harmless. However, thinking about the humiliation Duan Lingtian had just inflicted on him in public, the evil fire in his heart rose and was difficult to extinguish for a long time. He wished that Duan Lingtian would die tragically on the spot. If he was not the emperor of the Han Dynasty, whose every move represented the Han Dynasty, he would have personally taken action to eliminate Duan Lingtian long ago. The emperor's decisiveness was beyond Xiang Ying's expectations. For a moment, Xiang Ying hesitated. If he continued to insist, he would undoubtedly offend the emperor. But if he didn't persist, Duan Lingtian would probably die here. Suddenly, Xiang Ying's mind flashed with inspiration. He looked towards the emperor and spoke directly. Your Majesty, there is something I must explain to you. Behind this little brother of mine, there is a 3rd-rank weapon refiner who has a close relationship with him. 3rd-grade weapon refiner. The emperor, who had originally had a resolute look on his face, changed his expression slightly after hearing Xiang Ying's condensed yuanli sound, and there was a hint of fear in the depths of his eyes. Are you telling the truth? At this time, the emperor hesitated.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.